you guys know me already. I'm going to be talking about patience today. And obviously a lot of you guys know that patience is one of the hardest things to learn. And, oh, look at that. Well, the Bible tells us a lot about patience. Like in Isaiah 40:31, you guys have a Bible, I wrote it down already for you. Because I love you guys that much. It says, "But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up on wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not be faint." So if we're patient with the Lord, then we'll be strong. Yes. Anyway, another one, I'll be doing a lot of things from the Bible. From James. Hold on. Found it. Says, "Therefore, be patient, brethren, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, waiting patiently for it until it receives the early and later rain." So it's like how the farmers are very patient for their crops. They're not going to plant it and be like, okay, grow. You can't do that. Although I think a lot of us would want it to.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we have to be patient for them. It's not going to happen immediately. Although a lot of us would want it to. Yeah. It also tells us about in due time, like in Galatians 6:10. "Let him who is taught the word share in all good things to him who teaches. Do not be deceived, God is not mocked, for whatever a man sows, he will also reap. For he sows to his flesh, will of the flesh reap corruption, but he who sows in the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life." But the main verse says, "And let us not grow weary while doing good, for the due season will reap if we do not lose heart." So good things will come to us if we are patient and will wait for it. And as long as we encourage others to be patient, then it'll be a lot easier for them to be patient. Because I think a lot of us know, that it's very hard to be patient, because we all want things right in a second. But as long as we're patient, we can encourage others to be patient. Like in 1 Thessalonians, whenever you say it, 5:13. "And we urge you, brethren, admonish your unruly encouragement, the faint-hearted, help the weak, and be patient with all men." Like I said, if we're patient, we can help others be patient. In Psalms, it tells about, rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. We're all waiting for, Jesus to come back, but we have to be patient. A lot of us want him to come back immediately, but there's a lot of us we need to do too.
Yeah.
Like this says too, "Wait patiently for the word, Lord. He turned to me and heard my cries." So we can pray to him about our worries and our sadness. We can pray to him about anything.
Amen.
But we have to be patient if we ask for, a car or something, I don't know. Sure, a cell phone. Whatever you want to pray about. But we're not going to get it immediately. We have to be patient with the Lord. He's waiting for the right time for us to get it. It's like, I don't know if you guys know the story with Jacob, how he served 7 years to marry Rachel. But we all know, after the 7 years, he was given the oldest daughter instead. But then, he had to work 7 more years for Rachel again. So yeah, he worked, he was patient to get Rachel, although it didn't work out. But he was still patient for her for 7 more years. And they got her. Just kidding. So things can take 7 years, 20, I don't know. Whenever God wants us to wait, we have to be patient. But I know you guys know the story about the 2 sons. One wanted to have the money right away so he could go travel around the world. But we all know the story. He could have waited for the money, when his dad died. Could have done so much more with that money. But we all know he decided to be like, hey, Dad, I want the money. I'm giving my money, and let me go. So, the dad did, and we all know he left, spent all his money, and then had nothing. He had to work with pigs, he had no food, no friends, he had nothing. But if only he was patient, maybe all this wouldn't have happened. But it all worked out at the end anyway. He's like, oh man, I gotta nowhere to go, just go home. Maybe my dad will make me a servant. But he went home and his father was overjoyed. Yep. Check up on my story. And his father rejoiced and was happy for his son because he thought his son was dead. Although we all know he didn't die. Anyway. Eventually. But if you think about it, if he was patient, he probably could have had all that money and still had it afterwards. So, in the end, it works out, mostly. But for him, at first, it's like a hill. If you're not being patient, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this. But we all know about Abraham, too. Remember how God told, you're going to have a son. He's going to be, king of all the lands or something like that. I don't know. But, Abraham's getting old. He was like, oh, I got kids. And Sarah was all like, oh, I'm not going to be able to have kids soon. So Sarah was all like, hey, take my maid. She'll give you a son. And I'll raise him as my own. Something like that. Well, that wasn't God's plan, was it?
No.
No. So what happened? He had a son, but it wasn't one from Sarah. What was his name? Ishmael. Yes. But that was not the chosen son. So, although he was given land, I don't know. But if only Abraham and Sarah were patient, because they would have had a son.
Yeah.
But they weren't. And Joseph, remember him? He was sold into slavery. He was, all the stuff that happened to him. He had a great life, a great family. He was patient, and he had everything. Like, his dad gave him everything. He was the chosen son. Well, his brothers weren't patient with him. Although, he did not understand, after he was sold, though he still was patient with God. He patiently worked when he was in Potiphar's slave. He was still patient. He still was patient with God and knew things weren't right. Well, they were, but anyway, he was still faithful and worked. And he was still patient because he knew God had a plan. Though he did not understand why he was thrown in a cell either. He did what was right. He didn't go with Potiphar's wife. He didn't understand it. He thought he did the right thing, which he did. But he was still thrown in jail. So he was not happy. But he had to be patient with God. And God did, in the end, make him really highly or something. The patience was needed to allow God to accomplish his purpose in life, which made him save his family, save all of Egypt. So because he was patient, he was able to save everybody. But what would have happened if he wasn't patient? He could have gone his own way and things could have gotten worse. He could have been killed. He was in the pit. He could have cursed God and said, where are you? You've abandoned me. You know what? I'm not going to listen to you anymore. You did this to me. But he didn't. He was Potiphar's wife. He could have gone with her. But he was patient with God and knew he couldn't. So he didn't. In jail, he could have killed himself. I wouldn't want to be in jail. I wouldn't want to be in the jails back then either. But he didn't, because he was patient. If he was not patient, he would not have become high in command. So, but also, a really good person in the Bible that really showed really good patience was Job. Everything was taken away from him. His family owns kids. His wife was still there, although she kept telling him to kill himself. But he didn't. He was patient. He was a wealthy man. He had everything. But he's lost his crop, his property, the cattle, his servants, and his children. But he was patient and accepted it. He knew that God had a plan for this. Though, his friends told him, oh, you did something wrong. But he knew he didn't, because, he knew. But he was patient with God about it. He did not admit to any sins that he didn't do. And he knew he was a good person. But most of all, Jesus was the best example of patience. Like in Hebrews 12, says that Jesus' death on the cross, that it was something he endured. While his crucifixion was for our salvation, and the Bible says his death is also an example of our lives. When we were worn down during our daily tasks, we were reminded in Hebrews 12:2-3, look unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that is set before him endures the cross, despising the shame, and to sit down at the right hand of the throne of God, for considering him that endured such contradiction of sinners against himself. Lest be weary and faint in your mind. But before Jesus arrived at the cross, he was patiently training his disciples, even after his miracles and
Proclamation.
That word of being the Son of God, the disciples still were confused as who he was. Today, we think the disciples were being mature men of faith. But as we read through the gospel, Jesus was still trying to teach them how to preserve in prayer until the moment he was taken to the garden to be crucified. So, Jesus could have been like, oh, you don't understand. You go away, I'm going to find somebody else. But he didn't, because he was patient with his disciples as well. And also, like when he was out in the desert, being, tempted, he was patient. He was hungry, he was thirsty, but he was patient with God. Because he needed to be tested, or tempted, word. Whatever the task is that God has called us to do, we need to continue doing the work. Even if we do not see the progress like we want it to. Like I said, we pray for something, it doesn't happen immediately. It's not supposed to. Sorry, but it's not supposed to. But if you keep waiting and when God thinks you really need it the most, he will give it to you. It's if you need it, not if you want it. A lot of us want things. We all pray for things we want, but doesn't mean we're going to get it.
That's right.
We have to be patient
Good point.
and think of what we need first, because that's what God's going to give us, is what we need. Thank you. That's the end.